Top 5 previous Stanley Cup playoff teams that have fallen from grace and are least likely to make the cut feat. Maple Leafs. The Stanley Cup playoff race is ramping up as teams claw their way to cement their spots in the race to qualify for the 2025-26 NHL postseason. Teams like the Colorado Avalanche, Tampa Bay Lightning, Dallas Stars, Minnesota Wild, and Carolina Hurricanes, Vegas Golden Knights have all but confirmed their spots in the playoffs. The Buffalo Sabres are set to return to the postseason after a record 14 consecutive seasons of missing the playoffs. After a disappointing start to the season, the Jerry Pagula-owned team fired its GM Kevin Adams and hired Jarmo Kekalainen as its new hockey boss. Since then, the team's performance has skyrocketed to a 36-19-6 record, currently sitting in the number 2 seed of the Atlantic Division. The Athletic has devised a projection model that calculates the odds of each team qualifying for the 2025-26 Stanley Cup playoffs. To know more about how the model works and the methodology it operates under, please read here. According to the Stanley Cup playoff projection model, teams like the Vancouver Canucks, the New York Rangers, the Calgary Flames, and the Chicago Blackhawks all have less than 1% chance of making it into the playoffs, mirroring their previous season in 2024-25. Here's the list of the top 5 Stanley Cup playoff teams from last season that have regressed this season and have slim chances of qualifying for this year's playoffs, as per the Athletic Stanley Cup playoff projection model. The New Jersey Devils finished last year as the number 3 seed in the Metropolitan Division and were matched up against the No. 2 seed Carolina Hurricanes. The Canes dusted off the injury-stricken Devils in 5 games in Round 1 of the 2024-25 Stanley Cup playoffs. According to the Athletics model, the New Jersey Devils have a 3% chance of qualifying for the 2025-26 Stanley Cup playoffs. They are currently 7th in the Metropolitan Division with a 30-29-2 record. After crawling their way into last year's playoffs as the second wildcard playoff team, the St. Louis Blues were dispatched out of the playoffs in the first round by the Winnipeg Jets in 7 games. Due to their 22-29-9 record, the St. Louis Blues are in the penultimate spot in the Western Conference wildcard standings, which has prompted the Athletics model to give the 2019 Stanley Cup champs a less than 1% chance of qualifying for this year's playoffs. Blues GM Doug Armstrong has already begun entertaining offers for his top players such as Robert Thomas, Jordan Kyrou, and even Stanley Cup winning goalie Jordan Binnington. After being crowned as the President's Trophy winner for their 11-18-point regular season in 2024-25, the Winnipeg Jets managed to beat the St. Louis Blues in 7 games in Round 1 of last year's playoffs. But the President's Trophy curse soon caught up to the Manitoba team, as the Dallas Stars outed them in the second round of the playoffs in 6 games. So far this season, the Winnipeg Jets have a 24-26-10 record and sit 6th in both the Central Division and Western Conference wildcard standings. The Athletics model gives the Winnipeg Jets an 18% probability of sneaking their way into the 2025-26 NHL playoffs. The Toronto Maple Leafs finished last regular season as the Atlantic Division champs and were pitted against the Ottawa Senators in Round 1 of the playoffs. After 6 Battle of Ontario clashes, Austin Matthews and co. came out to top and proceeded to the second round, where they took on the eventual Stanley Cup champs, the Florida Panthers. The Panthers broke hearts of Maple Leafs fanbase as they narrowly bested their original 6 franchise opponents in Game 7 of the second round of the NHL playoffs. In the aftermath of their gutting playoff elimination, superstar Mitch Marner left his hometown team in the offseason to sign with the Vegas Golden Knights. The Athletics model gives this year's Toronto Maple Leafs a 3% chance to make it to the Stanley Cup playoffs due to their poor 27-24-10 record and 7th place in the Eastern Conference wildcard standings. The back-to-back Stanley Cup champions were favorites for a 3-peat heading into the 2025-26 season. After locking down all their big 3 free agents, Brad Marchand, Sam Bennett, and Aaron Ekblad, the Panthers had the recipe to repeat their success they tasted in the last 2 seasons. But the Panthers were hit with a barrage of injuries to star players like Captain Alexander Barkov, Matthew Tkachuk, and others, which has pulled the team down to last place in the Atlantic Division and 8th in the Eastern Conference wildcard standings. According to the Athletics projection model, the 2-time Stanley Cup champs have an 8% chance of qualifying for this year's NHL playoffs, and a less than 1% shot at successfully completing their 3-peat. Wayne Gretzky, his wife Janet, responds to critics questioning his loyalty to Canada. Bobby Orr's support following 4 Nations drama quick links.